It was a really good race, except if you're George Russell.
When I saw the breaking news, I said, oh my good God, that's no one's joy. No one is happy for that.
1.5 kilograms, that's not a small amount.
That's the rules, There's just, unfortunately, we've all been there and we've all been caught. It is a shocking situation.
Again, Oscar did a solid job.
2 laps later, God knows what could have happened. Isn't that what we said a couple of races ago? He's going to be one of the greats of the future. Absolutely. He is mustard. I love him.
Hello and welcome to Formula for Success. I'm David Coulthard, and joining me, unfiltered, unedited, definitely unhinged, it's Eddie Jordan.
Good morning, David. Lovely morning yet again. We're so blessed.
We are indeed. We're into the summer break now from Formula One. But before I asked you what your plans are for your summer holidays, another big weekend, Formula One racing. The triple header has come to an end. I wasn't actually in Spa. I was at the Live Golf event, your friends, the Bamford's golf course. Very impressive, I've got to say. It was like a 3-day stag weekend. They've got music pumping as people go up to the tee. They've got what was called the party hole. All the players pick their own song as they walk up to, it was a par 3. And it's definitely added a lot of energy and excitement. You're a big golfer. Have you seen any of the Live Golf?
Yeah, sure. I saw it in Sotogrande when it came there first. I was always apprehensive about it. I'm a little bit concerned. It'd be like splitting Formula One into 2. And we can ask maybe our next guest about that, because I remember myself and himself and a couple of others, we took on Ferrari, Ron Dennis and Frank Williams, because they wanted to split it up. Bernie was on, we wanted to support Bernie, which we did. I just don't see how a sport of the magnitude of golf and the magnitude of Formula One can sustain 2 top-level situations where they are both going head-to-head with each other. I just can't believe that they can't find a compromise between the Saudis and the British and the American tours and come to some sort of agreement. That's my opinion.
Well, I've got to say, as someone that hasn't really played a lot of golf, excuse me, and someone who hasn't actually gone to many major events, I went to the Open ones, I found it very entertaining, and therefore I can see how that would appeal to the less traditionalists. But shall we move back to our chosen sport, F1?
Sure.
We've just come off the Belgian Grand Prix, the scene of one of the great Jordan victories. Congratulations. You're welcome.
Thank you. I love it. I like Spa.
And it was a cracking race. It was a really good race, except if you're George Russell. So let's address that first of all. He seems that he drove the decision to go for one stop from the cockpit. So that's a winner's mentality, not just following the instructions of the team, which would have almost certainly put him behind Lewis Hamilton, who drove faultlessly, it has to be said. But he was disqualified, 1.5 kilograms. Now, 1.5 kilograms, that's not a small amount.
Well, to most people it is, particularly when the weight of the car is just on 600 kilos.
800 kilograms actually now, 800, yeah.
Is it 8? Okay, so
yeah.
I apologise. So it's a tiny percentage. However, there are certain things that you're allowed to top up, like the brake fluid and different oils and various other things. And I don't know what the new regulations are like, but we used to have to be ready with all sorts of things to put in the car to get it back to the weight limit. And I remember having to strip basically the car down in Brazil to maintain and keep our points position because we couldn't there was no fuel, not enough fuel left. You have to leave enough fuel. I think it's 2 litres, one for you and one for the race organisers, and we weren't able to pump that out. So we had to stand it on its head. We had to suck it down the pipes and do every goddamn thing. But anyway, we did in the end, and it took 3 or 4 hours to do it. So I can imagine the anguish that George must have been going through for that hour and a half as they absolutely did everything. They must have queried the weighing scales. They must have queried anything that was on it. They must have, perhaps they hadn't taken into account George doing that one stop, that set of tyres, it wore down more than the other set of tyres that it would have had on. And as a result, could that have been a kilo? Could that have been a kilo and a half? The water bottles, why didn't I spill or pee or do whatever you do in the car to just add weight here, there and everywhere? And I know, David, when you need to have to do something, you will do it. But I'm sure George did all of those things. And I'm sure that Toto and the team did all, but yet it came in under... And that's the rules, There's just, unfortunately, we've all been there and we've all been caught. It is a shocking situation.
Yeah, I really feel for George, because that was arguably his greatest win in his short winning career. And it slips away from him. So there's all sorts of ramifications, isn't there? If you take a managerial role, drivers typically have a win bonus in their contract. That only sticks, of course, if you win. Now, there'd be an element of the manager probably saying, well, George did everything right to win that race. It's the team that have underperformed in that the car is under the weight limit. So where do you sit in all that? Would you give a driver his just dues if the car was disqualified, or is it only if the actual result stands?
Look, there's no real right way and there's no real wrong way on this one. And it comes down to compassion, and it comes down to the relationship with the driver and the team, and just generally. I know Toto. Toto is not a poor man, and he's very astute and very careful. He sees in George a world champion going forward. Why not pay him the money? If there's a genuine mistake, which it looks as if it is, that's what he said in his press release, pay him the money. It is absolutely no doubt. But, George is not going to, miss his next meal over whether he gets it or not.
True.
But the reality is, I think out of fairness, there needs to be clarity as to where, because David, here's the point I'm coming. Okay, I'll finish on that. So yes, if I was Toto, pay the guy the money. You're Mercedes, you're magnanimous, you're a top team, and you've been surprised at how great this driver is. Pay him. So, but having said that, I don't know about your day and my day, but when we were on race day, one of the first things, you come in early in the morning, you fire the car up, you see that there was no leaks or oils, and you go right through the car, absolutely check it for the diff, check it for the gears, that it ran through all the gears and the downshift and everything was right. Then you put it back on the ground. What's the next thing you did? You rolled it out and you did about 20 minutes of pit stop practice. And the next thing, before you brought it back to the garage, you rolled it back for a time that you'd allocated with the weight and the controls at the very front of the grid, and you put the car on the thing. You then started to fill it with fuel. There is an exercise there, and I don't know how the current Formula Ones, but it was very heavily controlled, because we used to run the car absolutely on the weight limit, as indeed everyone else does. And any change in the format of the structure, and that's why I'm asking you, could it be possible that the tyres, having been used for 30-odd laps, it would be an interesting question to ask Pirelli, because my guess is that they would have lost, what the bits of rubber that's thrown off at the sides, and you see at the end of the circuit, particularly in Monaco.
The marbles everywhere.
Everywhere. So probably less so with the ultra hards or the hard tar that he ran on, but nevertheless... And you know what I don't understand? We would always say on the slowing down lap, Damon, Ralph, Giancarlo, go on the dirty track, pick up as many marbles, pick up as many rubbles, pick up as many bits of crap that you can off the track while the tires are still hot. Now, I'm sure you were told that. Was that not true, David?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely you could add some weight to it.
It's a question we'll ask Toto if we can ever get him on the programme. So what mechanism was made to make sure you'd have picked up a kilo and a half easy in that kind of a context? So, old heads are wise old heads in certain ways, and you remember about making sure that you try and leave things in the car that will add to the weight. This didn't happen, or if it did happen, it wasn't enough. So absolutely felt for joy. When I saw the breaking news, I said, oh my good God, that's no one's joy. No one is happy for that.
No, disappointing. But what has been a fantastic 4 Grand Prix? The last 3 Grand Prix Mercedes have won. Lewis Hamilton looked very in control, and And it's reassuring actually, because it was early in the year, it still felt as if, were we seeing an off form Lewis? And when I say that, that's the very lesser spotted animal, because he's only ever really been on form in his career. But he seems to be back at his brilliant best as he gets into a sort of countdown to leaving Mercedes. So where do you think, because I've been trying to put myself in his situation where he's actually got one part of his mind will be on Ferrari. It's got to be. Instead of him sort of counting down this season and getting the best he can, and arguably if Mercedes keep going as they are, they could bring themselves back into challenging for both championships. It wouldn't take much misfortune for Max, and suddenly, he's being attacked from all sides, isn't he?
A couple of things there. Let's talk about Lewis, and then I want to talk to you about the championship and if I was Max, how I would see things happening or unfolding. And Lewis, I think in the beginning of the year, he was without any doubt pretty much focused on joining Ferrari, getting the right people, making sure that he had Fred Vasseur on board, and Ferrari obviously had a good race at the weekend. So they're going to be a big team next year, and they will be overjoyed to see the re-emergence of Lewis, because no amount of saying to Ferrari, say, look, what we're doing at Mercedes, don't worry about that. We can beat George, we can beat everyone, and we're going to be powerful. And that Mercedes team is going to be strong going forward, but Ferrari is going to be incredibly strong, because I think Lewis is right back on his game, and he's now eyeing up a championship fight for next year. And who's to say that he's wrong? So that was his decision. Coming back to where I actually see the championship unfolding is that there's too many drivers, as we said. 7 drivers have won races this year. And, the biggest protagonist to Max at the moment is Lando Norris. And yet Max took, a couple of points or 3 points from him again at the weekend. So it's another race notched off the counter, 10 to go. And there's a gap of 78 or whatever it is. 78 points in a 10-race period is, he's got to beat him by at least seven points each race. Can you see that happening? Actually, I can't. So I see Max getting the title. However, Red Bull and your friends, and I know you're incredibly close, and a great friend of yours is Christian Horner, but Christian must be aware that after yesterday, it was consolidated in my mind. Yes, there was bad qualifying, and yes, there was this in the past, and disappointment of not getting into the final qualifying with Checo. But to actually start on the front row and finish in 8th, or he may have been promoted to 7th or whatever it was in the end as a result of Russell, it was a very poor performance, in my opinion. I can't see how they can not do something.
It's a tough one, isn't it? But as we've said before, and certainly I've said, this isn't show friends. This is, this is the business of winning. And maybe Checo has just, turned the page on really being at the top of his game, because no time stands still for no man. And there's always a point where the driver starts to sort of trail off. Tell me anyone that has gone for a long career that has just been getting better and better.
No, and you see that exactly with Alonso at the beginning of the year. He was awesome. And at the moment, I have to look to see where he is, if he's actually in the top 10 or not. As it happens, he drove well yesterday, dragged more points for Aston's, but at the same time, it's nowhere near the level that he thinks he can be at. Because for him, in his mind, he's every bit as good as Lewis. And he expected to be able to fight with Lewis this year. And to be honest, that hasn't happened. And you can't see it happening for the remainder of this year. So I also think about psychologically what goes on in these guys' heads.
Well, it remains to be seen exactly how good the Aston is going forward. I think Fernando's, 2 more years in his contract, which is
sure
would be unbelievable. He'll be 44, scraping 45 by the time he comes to what I assume will be the end of his career. Just want to take a step back on onto Checo, because who is the obvious replacement? Yuki at Alpha Tauri, not Alpha Tauri anymore, it's V-Carb, isn't it? I think one of the worst names in Formula One, doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, V-Carb. So you've got Yuki, who has done a fairly solid job, definitely looking right up there with the best Japanese drivers that we've had in Formula One, Sato and drove for you. Suzuki, who also got a podium when he was, I think it was at La Rousse. So you've got him sitting there going, well, look, I'm the obvious choice. You've got Daniel Ricciardo, who has, had a bit of a roller coaster, but seems to be pretty happy with his most recent performances. He must know he's in with a chance of that. Who would you go for? What do you think is the obvious choice?
Oh, David, I don't know. I mean, do they have a third driver? I don't know. Do they have a reserve driver? And I just concerned because I thought that when we did see glimpses of Lawson, I thought he was extremely strong. And they're going to have to try a couple of people because they will not want to lose the constructors' title, and they are going to lose the constructors' title if they don't. It needs immediate action. And you don't get a second chance at these things. When you see and you look at the situation, you have to work out, where is McLaren coming? Where is Mercedes coming? Less so Ferrari, perhaps, because they trip over themselves from time to time. But those two teams, British teams, next door to each other, one in Brackley and the other in Woking, for heaven's sake, they know what it's like to win championships. And they will fight like hell with Red Bull. So yes, I see Max winning the title because we saw yet again on the Saturday of qualifying in the wet. I thought Max was in a different class. I really thought he was in a different class with those wet conditions in the tyres that he had, the way he did it with one set of tyres less than anyone else. The guy was in a different class. But the car is not as quick in the dry as it is and can be in the wet. And that's a couple of things. Very often when you have a car that's quick in the wet and not quick in the dry, we always used to say the car is on the unsprung weight. It's too soft. And so maybe they harden it up, or maybe they didn't have enough downforce, or maybe they had this, or maybe they had that. Far too complicated for me to get involved in. But they were the first things that you would actually say. The car is soft, it's wallowing, it's sitting down on itself. It's not sitting up and jumping around the place. So I don't know, but the engineers there will certainly know, and they will find a solution. However, Checo is an issue, and they're going to have to do something about it.
Well, what doesn't appear to be an issue is McLaren drivers. They're both consistently performing. Again, Oscar did a solid job. Well, that's more than a solid job. Did a great job to get that podium in Spa.
2 laps later, God knows what could have happened. He isn't that what we said a couple of races ago? He's going to be one of the greats of the future. Absolutely. He is mustard. He's mustard. I love him.
He did a great job. Max, solid enough in getting the sort of recovery drive to pick up some points. Still ekes out a little bit more a lead in the Drivers' Championship. But it's been several races now since he won. He was, let's say, calmer on the radio in Spa than he was in Hungary. So maybe a bit more reflective, a bit more sort of looking at the bigger picture, the championship.
Yes, I think his eyes are focused clearly. You know, he was happy enough when he found out that he was on pole on the Saturday to go back to 10 slots, because that was a Christian Horner tactical. I thought that was clever. And to take the hit and get a new engine in there for the remainder of whatever is part of the season is solid. But they did honestly expect rain, and they did expect Max to come up and probably challenge for the lead. That didn't happen. And I thought that it was a hell of a fight. You know, Max certainly wasn't going to pass Leclerc, and at the same token, Lando wasn't going to pass him. So that was status quo there. But it was the fight at the beginning, and the way that Piastri caught up on the two Mercedes. I'm sure Toto has to be thinking to himself, geez, we've got to be able to we've got to counteract what's going on here at McLaren, because they look incredibly strong. Two brilliant drivers. And as you pointed out on every occasion last weekend or those two are going to be in tandem. They're going to be fighting each other. They're going to be fighting for grid position. They're going to be fighting for race results. It's great for the punters, but I'm sure a hell of a ride for the team, because they are completely confused. Because any time now, you asked me last week, is Lando number one in that team? I said to you without any question, yes. And I would still say that today if you ask me. But give me a couple of more races and we might have to adjust that.
Yeah, well, it's a good problem for McLaren to have two top drivers pushing each other. There's been some other moves in the paddock. We know that Kevin Magnussen will leave Haas. That will mean that Ollie Behrman, the F2 driver, will be partnered by Esteban Ocon. So a sort of mix of experience and youth. Ocon, of course, has had one Grand Prix victory in Hungary a couple of years ago. So good move for the team. Any future for Kevin Magnussen, or do you think his time is up in Formula One?
Kevin has such flashes of brilliance. I still think there's a place for him. I don't know why, but I put somebody like Hülkenberg and Magnussen pretty similar in terms of the driving style, the characters, the people, I think Kevin damaged his reputation by some of the crazy things that he did earlier in the year. I'm not sure if that resonates with other team principals or whatever. But, there's really only two seats left. There's one at Williams and one at Alpine. And one of them will for sure go to Carlos Sainz. So there's really only one seat later. So
what about Audi? You've only got Hülkenberg confirmed at Audi. So there's still a seat there as well.
My guess is they'd be far, far wiser to hold on and see what's on. Why do they need a second driver? They can hire people in to do whatever they need to do. All you're doing is building up a wage packet and you're building up a structure. Hire Kevin if you want to. That would be a good idea in many respects, but at the same time, the financial gurus within Audi will be probably looking at what is the cost of all of this.
Well, there's been some changes at the senior level as well. Not Andrea Stella, excuse me. I've forgotten his name right now. Has just left.
Seidel.
Andrea Seidel. Yes, absolutely. Andrea Seidel has just left. And that has meant that Matteo Binotto has come out of his gardening leave from Ferrari and will head up the team there. Good move.
We'll see.
You don't sound overly impressed.
Well, the thing is, I have a question mark over Audi in the full stop. You and I are particularly good friends with McNish, with Alan, and we wish him well there. But, that's a big, big task he's taken on, big, big operation to build a car, to run it out of Switzerland, to run it out of with German people, German manufacturing. Oh, my God. It's a big, big, big ask. When did you last see a Swiss or a German team win a world title? We saw what Toyota did. Yeah. They came and they tried to do it that way and it didn't work. And, the amount of teams that is done is cost fortunes. And so it's a big ask. And I have to say, beyond any way doubt, there is no better way to run a race car than through Britain. And particularly in that area of Northampton, Oxfordshire, and various other places. They've just got such a wealth of knowledge. They've just got such a mindset of being able to win or to achieving or to getting the best. And the suppliers in the region understand the complexities and the timeframes that people are under. Whereas, you go out and you order a piece of machinery to be done in Switzerland. They'll give you a timeline of maybe lead in maybe 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months. And there's nothing you can do. Whereas if you're in the UK, you will just sit on top of that supplier and say, if you don't do this, you just don't get any more work. So you better drop everything and do it. And they'll work night and day to get it done. So that's the philosophy, that there is a racing culture. It's in the DNA. And I think what Audi are doing is fundamentally wrong. It shouldn't also go unnoticed that the team that they bought, which is Sauber, which I adore Peter Sauber as a person, but nice people don't win anything. And unfortunate thing is that Peter hasn't won anything in terms of winning Grand Prix. What he has failed to do even this year, which must be a big embarrassment for him, is that they're the only team without a point. And having said that, they are absolutely paddy last. And, that's no great joy. And I'm disappointed for them. But, James Kay, lots of good people left Jordan to go to Switzerland because of the promise of money, the promise of stature, of success. It just doesn't happen, David.
Yeah. Well, Peter, of course, the team has won in Formula One. My last podium, I was alongside.
But that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah, Robert Kubica.
That was BMW, David. That was the officially BMW team. Peter Sauber, as a person, as a team, as an entrant, has not won a championship. Or he's never not won a race. BMW has won a race. Two totally different things.
Okay, you're now nitpicking EJ because it was out at the same factory. But yeah, okay, fair enough. I do totally agree with you. I think that if you are really trying to be world champions and Grand Prix winner, then the UK, it has long established itself as being the backbone of where you would achieve that. Ferrari are the outliers, of course, but that took a major European operation of headcount to deliver that. But time will tell whether it is successful or not. But, well, EJ, as the drivers head off for the summer break, we are, of course, committed to our listeners. We'll still be recording our podcasts each week. But I think for now, we should head off to take a little bit of time on the lounger. Remember, our listeners, you can get in touch with us on social media at F1 for Success, and you can send in your questions to ffs@whisper.tv. EJ, I'm off to have a sangria. What are you up to?
Oh my God, I couldn't. Believe it or not, I haven't had a drink for a while. Quite a good time. So I'm actually glad I'm missing you because I'd hate to be encouraged to be back on the sauce. DC, have a great day. Have a lovely... Are you going to spend some time with Dayton and his racing, or what are you going to do?
Yeah. I'm actually heading to a test in Jerez with Dayton. So he'll be getting some more experience of an F4 car. And yeah, see how that develops. It'll be hot down there. You remember testing in the summer in Jerez? I think we used to go out at like 6 a.m. to try and get ahead of the heat.
Listen, I have a home for 30 odd years in Soto Grande, just around the corner from Jerez. And I actually, when the wind, the Poniente comes and it's 45 degrees of heat and it never stops. I'm telling anyone who goes to Jerez testing is a braver man than me. I think it's absolutely wild. So 6 o'clock in the morning, that's just as the sun comes up, that's the time to go.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, EJ, enjoy the remainder of your little French break, and I'll see you in Londinium soon.
Ah!